The following is a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio. Keep your mission on your mind and your mind on your mission. This is Mission Minded with Michael Coleman.
Welcome back to another Mission Minded. Keep your mind, your mission, and your mind. Is the CEO of the Heart of Alabama Food Bank. They cover 35 counties in the wonderful state of Alabama down there in beautiful Montgomery, Alabama. He is Michael Coleman, the CEO. Michael, how you doing, brother? What's going on?
Doing great.
Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy New Year.
Yeah,
all that stuff.
Whatever's all included in that. Somebody's celebrating something, happy whatever. And,
let me ask you something. Do you say Merry Christmas or do you say Happy Holidays? Or does it depend on who you're talking to? I have actually found myself saying Happy Holidays to people that don't look like me. But if they're if they're white crusty people, I say Merry Christmas just because I feel like we're probably on the same page. But if I see something that's a little darker or Latino, then I'll say Happy Holidays because but I really don't think I don't know anyone that's gotten offended because I've said Merry Christmas.
It's gotten, we went through that. I think we're on the backside of that political correctness.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to say Happy Holidays now, unless I know the person. Just because, but that's not how I feel. I just want whatever. I'm not trying to make a statement. It's really just more of a greeting, or a farewell. It's just a politeness.
Whatever happened to attention?
I'm not trying to enforce Jesus on people if I say Merry Christmas, but
I am. Screw you. I'm going 100% Jesus brothers. Rock on. No, I mean the old, and I keep seeing those little nativity scenes. Jesus is the reason for the season. This, that. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But whatever happened with just trying to be polite and trying to, your intention is to wish someone happy holidays or how are you today or whatever. And
it's just noticing somebody. It's a sign of kindness and
yeah. That's why I call people by pet names. I rarely call people by their real names. I just don't. I'm not a good name person, but it's just a sincere way of showing some respect and jocularity, if you will, with another fellow human being. So if you don't like that,
I'm gonna be honest with you. I think there's been so much blowback. You see it in the election. So much of the political correctness and just the cancel culture and the just the police who are out there watching everything you say and just dividing us over every race, every gender issue, every comment that's made, every thought. And there's been such a huge, that's where we were in COVID and we came out on the backside of that.
Mm.
And now it's the pendulum swung the other way, which is nobody can get canceled for anything now, which I'm personally a fan of.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of living in a free society is that you get freedom of speech and freedom to express your thoughts and ideas, and you're going to have disagreement, and hopefully you have healthy debate, and we can talk to each other with kindness and sensitivity, but not to the point it squelches thought.
There you go.
And ideas. So anyway, so I guess I hadn't thought about it much, but I guess I probably more so than others would say Happy Holidays if I didn't know the person.
Well, it's not like, all of a sudden you don't like someone, you just decide to shoot them in the back, right?
Right.
Well, I guess maybe it is that way. And kidding aside, that's what we wanted to talk about today. I actually have United Healthcare as my provider. I don't know anyone who loves their insurance company. I also have State Farm on this radio program. Chris Dorse has been a friend of mine, but that's a different type of insurance. But health insurance, anyone that's ever had to go through any type of health insurance issues at all normally has some types of issues if you're asking for some type of a redemptive situation. You pay your dues. You sit there, and for the most part, your health insurance is important in case you get the big C or something like that. And then when you do have something like I had a shoulder surgery or I'm having back surgery next week or something, and all of a sudden it's time to pay back and dip into those coffers a little bit. Next thing you know, they're asking for deductibles. And for the most part, I think we know our health plans. We know what the situation is, but it does make it difficult. All that particular pharmaceutical is not covered under your plan, or that doctor is not particular plan, or your referrals not going through. We certainly understand that. I don't know if that had anything to do with what happened to the CEO that was killed in cold blood outside New York City. And we're still finding out some more details about that. But you are a CEO of the Heart of Alabama Food Bank. You're a different CEO of a non-for-profit. You're a good guy. Not to say that other CEOs aren't, but this is the first time that I've seen. And I was trying to think: has there ever been a blowback on CEOs in our past? And I was trying to think: has anything like this ever happened before? I'm sure it has.
I'm sure it has. I can't think of anything that jumps off the pages at me, but I will say this. There's been for a long time, there's been an outcry, and you see it in political terms where it to make somebody the enemy, all you have to do is put the word big in front of it. Big insurer,
Mm.
big pharma, big medical,
Big government.
big whatever, it doesn't matter, big oil, it doesn't
Mm.
matter. And automatically that pits them. And I really looked into that, like, why is that? And is our frustration warranted? And is there a way that you can balance that whole issue, to where there's more of a medium? When I looked at it, the truth of the matter is I really understand both perspectives, or I feel like I do, because I've been on the receiving end, of having people, like, we offer 100% health care here. Now it's a silver plan, and to upgrade on a plan, if you want to, for your family, to the gold plan under Blue Cross Blue Shield here in Alabama, it's like $75 for the individual.
Mm.
And so you have lower deductibles, lower premiums, things like that. Lower, you know what I'm saying, cost, when you go in. But you know, sometimes there are things that just are not covered, and it's something you need. And then the problem is that things are so outrageously expensive, then you can't get something. And so lots of times you have to go through appeals, and lots of times you talk to people who talk as if they couldn't care less, even though to you, your world's been flipped upside down by a certain diagnosis or whatever. So I think what most people are seeing is this the idea that companies are going to put profit over everything else. That you really don't care about your customers. You don't care. You're so driven on profit. You're willing to exploit people, and you can even get into environmental and all that kind of stuff. I think there's less of that concern, but I do think there's a real concern about a lack of accountability. That lots of times you have to go to get an attorney, and that cost and that headache, and that expense oftentimes, and then people. It seems like the insurance companies, instead of finding how to solve a client's problem, are drawing lines in the sand that says, "Well, no, you had to submit this appeal to us by." The 10th day, and you submitted on the 11th day. So we're not even going to consider your appeal, those kind of
Mm.
things. But then let's flip over here to the corporate side. I looked up United Healthcare, and their gross revenue last year was like 2023 was like $317 billion.
Mm.
Their profit, so this is after everybody's paid, this is just their profit, was still $22.3 billion. Now,
Okay.
if there's somebody who did not have a life-altering surgery that they did because they drew a line and all that, I get where they say, see, that's corporate greed. Look, how many billions do you need as a corporation that you need to net? I think ideally, nobody in our society wants, when you have publicly traded companies, you work for your shareholders. Ironically, that's a lot of us who have United Healthcare maybe in our retirement plans, and we want them to return a good profit
Mm.
because it
Sure.
builds up our retirement. I mean, that's the
Funny how that
twist.
works. Yeah.
That's right. But ideally, I think we would be good with, could there be a system? We don't want to, when you look at Canada and you look at European system, where there's health, general health care for everybody, there are long waits in line. And sometimes people have to wait so long for an MRI or whatever, they can't get the help they need. I mean, there's so everybody's like, what's the right system? Ideally, I think you'd want the quality of American healthcare. You'd want the advancements of quality healthcare, but somehow whoever's providing that healthcare almost breaking even at the end of the day. I'm not talking about corporate greed and all that other stuff, but let's just say what would have been different if that 22 point billion dollar, and let's say yes, you have to keep growing with technology and research and development, and that's a lot of what that 22 billion does.
Sure.
It continues to um, fuel innovation and fuel new cures and new procedures and all of that. That's why we're ahead of the game. But wouldn't it be great if you could say, okay, we're going to set aside this amount, and then whatever we have left over, if let's say it's 10 billion, 15 billion at the end of the day, that somehow we'd say going into next year, we're going to spread that across and lower your payments, or we're going to invest it in something that you're going to see, like maybe everybody's going to get $1,000 credit for what, you know what I'm saying?
They actually did that with some other insurance companies. I know State Farm did something after COVID. I believe that maybe Geico or some other insurance companies, not healthcare insurance, but other
Yeah,
insurance type of businesses said, "Listen, we've done pretty well here," and they kicked back, and it wasn't a lot, but it was a nice gesture.
it was an acknowledgement.
I
Yeah,
think there's this. I think there's this feeling maybe, and I don't want to paint CEOs on one thing because I really think this is an insurance specific type of situation in that you do, for the most part, you have to have health insurance. It's important. If you don't have health, I went 3 years without health insurance right after my divorce, and I was freaking out because I was like, now's the time I'm going to get the cancer. I'm going to get, or I'm going to break a leg or something, and I'm going to be totally screwed. And you don't get insurance for the little things. You get insurance for those major things. That's why you have car insurance. That's why you have liability in case someone gets hurt or something like that, because you can't come out of pocket. But it does seem like a lot of people feel like if I paid over the course of my life, 16, 17, I've never had a speeding ticket or anything like that. Next thing you know, I need you now. Now is when I need you. I just had a car wreck and I just totaled my vehicle. And then they start getting the runaround. That's where it's kind of like, listen, dude, I've been here. I've been paying you for 10 years and I've never had a claim. And all of a sudden you're telling me that I've got to go get my own rental car. I mean, what the hell? And I think
yeah,
that's where some people really get fed up, particularly in the healthcare business, not thinking about that person who may have to have 17 surgeries at $1 million a piece, and
exactly.
how that comes down. The other thing I think is really interesting is just CEO. Um, there's this thought process out there that the little guy's getting screwed over. We've seen this with all these, strikes and everything else, everything from the car dealers to the car thing to, I mean, there was strike after strike after strike. We've done several shows on those where everybody in the business, everyone from answering the phone to the person who works the field, is not making any money, but the guy, you find out the business is losing its ass, yet the CEO got his bonus.
Yep.
I saw that in radio. I saw where we went bankrupt 3 times, and then found out my CEO got a $3 million bonus at the end of the year. Part of their deal. That was part of their contract. She got the bonus because it was in her contract that if they performed at a certain level in some of the major markets, had nothing to do with the bankruptcy she gets. So I was kind of like, you know what? That's her deal. That's that. I got bonuses. I got bonuses. When I was number one, number two in the market, I'd get bonus, and I knew our company wasn't doing well, but I didn't return my bonus. So I mean, I kind of understood that. Can you talk a little bit about?
Yeah, I
Is,
mean,
is, is
I'm
there
really,
is there a disparity there, or is that just the way it is? Because someone's got to be at the top and someone's got to be making the big bucks.
so I don't have any problem with CEOs making a considerable amount of money, but I will tell you, and we've talked about unions, we've talked about blue collar versus white collar, but Boeing CEO and Boeing has had so many problems. I think several months ago we mentioned this, but the Boeing CEO went in front of Congress, and I think it was the senator from Nebraska, the Republican senator from Nebraska, asked him about his rate of pay. And basically, in 1 year, he got a 43% raise to $43 million was his base salary. And of course, there was tons of other things included in that. But they were going through, and right now, they're going through this mechanics, and he goes back and he said, I think, let me get the number two wrong here, but basically said they've had one raise in the last 8 years that union people had, and it was not significant at all. And he goes, and as many problems as Boeing has had this year, you get a raise, and it's 43% all the way to $43 million, 46% to $43 million. And when people see that, they're like, okay, this CEO, Boeing had a terrible year in terms of wings falling off and having to ground jets and all that kind of stuff. And he gets millions upon millions. But here's the person coming every day, trying to provide for their family, putting this, screwing the bolts in, all that, just doing the hard work every day. Oftentimes a thankless job. And we berate him if they go on strike because they want a 20% raise. And we're like, if you're anti-union, which the majority of the country doesn't favor unions, but when you see things like this, it makes unions very sympathetic, because now I've seen unions where they're like, hey, they're just over the top. They just like all the benefits they want, all that can sometimes just seem like it's so much. But when I see things like that, I get the anger, I get the frustration, I feel it myself for them. That now, let me make sure very clear. I think this guy who committed this murder should had mental health issues. I think that's already been established. I don't know his particulars. Nobody deserves to be shot. This CEO, from all accounts, was a good guy, a good husband, good father, all those kind of things. And I'm sure he's doing the best he can trying to provide. He's not Satan incarnate, because he runs a healthcare company who made a lot of money. But
let's back up just a little bit. I mean, it takes stockholders, it takes chairmen, it takes people around that organization to say, hey, listen, if someone comes up to you and for whatever reason, the Heart of Alabama Food Bank, maybe has their best year ever this year, and someone comes in and says, Michael, we want to give you a 50% pay raise. And you're knowing that money could have been spent somewhere else or whatever, you're not going to say no. You worked your ass off. And that goes for everyone else. And so they
see, just like Trump, I've been watching some video of old Trump debates with Clinton. And he was accused, and this was brilliant actually at the time, whether you like Trump or don't like Trump, this to me was brilliant, because they accused him of taking advantage of every one of the tax loops to where he doesn't pay any taxes. And he goes, that's absolutely right. I know the tax base more than anybody here, but he pointed over to Hillary and said, I take the same tax advantages that her friends in Congress. They could close the loopholes if they wanted to, but they don't, because they want their high-powered friends. And he named several of them. So the point is, he's not violating the law. He doesn't have any moral obligation to turn over millions of his own dollars willingly to the government. None of us would do that. I mean, it's ridiculous. We're going to do what the government says we have to do. But then what happens is it points to this narrative, or it feeds into this narrative, that the little guy doesn't stand a chance. We're doing everything we can. We're paying our health insurance. We get it through our company. And then, boom, I don't use it for 20 years, and now I've got this, and all of a sudden you're going to tell me it doesn't cover it. And I'm like, you are trying to screw me. So I get that emotion. And what I will say, and I want to be very careful when I say this, what this guy did was horrible. I do think it's time for our country, though, to really dig into this, if we could do it in a nonpartisan way, and try to bridge that gap. I don't want a Democrat plan. I don't want a Republican plan. I don't want something like the Care Act under Obama that was it was politicized. It was one-sided. It was it was so complicated. To this day, I don't think most people understand it and can navigate their way through it. But it had a lot of features in it that I think were right. But you've got these special interests. You've got the insurance companies who go, well, the problem is societies. Every time a doctor makes a mistake, you're going to sue them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we have to have, and juries are awarding millions and millions and millions of dollars. So guess what? There needs to maybe be some tort reform to where insurance companies say, okay, we can lessen our rates or we don't have to charge us out. Then you've got the other people over here, the medical professionals, and then you've got the pharmaceutical companies and everybody, and then you've got stockholders. I am very pro-capitalist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think it's the best system in the world, but that doesn't mean that it does not have that in some ways it's severely flawed. And I'm not sure that something like healthcare should be under necessarily all the capitalistic rules. Because if you think about systems, because capitalism overall is a good financial system because it can liberate people out of poverty if they work hard and have opportunity, have desires. But you look at, I spent 21 years in the military. The military is not a democracy. And military healthcare and VA healthcare is, I get my healthcare from the VA. It's not a democracy. It's kind of like a government pay. I mean, we pay a very small part of our military retirement, but that's kind of what it is.
Sure.
And it has good and bad in it. But the doctors there they spend time with the patients because they're not trying to whip them all out. They're not as apt to make mistakes. I mean, there are some positive things about it that lots of times I know people in rural areas here in Alabama, they've closed several rural hospitals. Well, you have a company like UAB, and I like UAB, and UAB has research hospital, it has the school, and it's great. And my hometown hospital was taken over. It was bought out by UAB from the city. And I was actually glad because I'm like, hey, they know how to run it. If it's under UAB, it'll stay there. But the point is UAB gets bigger, 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 bigger. They even have their own insurance company, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. It doesn't matter. But they're such a huge entity and a power player. Then now, they're gonna look at cost and what's going to enable them to be more. So in other words, they can start off with the best motives in the world. You just go towards profit. You go towards maybe cutting out some of the staff. You don't know, you get lean. And that's where mistakes happen. That's where. But it doesn't all lie with one entity.
Yeah,
there's problems all around, and this healthcare is a real mess.
And you mentioned big government, big oil, big blah 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 blah. There's this thought, and I have a friend of mine who opened up a bar several years ago, a little microbrewery, and he went out and basically raised $1 million, investors. $1,000 a pop. Took him about 2 or 3 years to open up a place. He bought the land, had the building built, put all the necessary things in there. He had the filters and all that stuff to make this particular. And he had this guy who was kind of going along with him that was, helping him, that was making, I don't know, $30,000-$40,000 a year, kind of like a brewmaster, right? And he was making these particular types of brews, and these brews were really doing well. And so he was taking his brews and he was taking them, and then he started packaging them. He started selling them in 7-Elevens, and not only selling them, he started making some really good money. Well, this guy said, hey, listen, you'd be nothing without me. You're giving me $40,000 a year and you're making all this money. You're selling the beer that I created. in these stores, and now you're making even more. And while I'm trying to pay my rent over here, you're living in this 5-4 over here, and you're driving the
Yeah.
nice car. I get that. And so there was this coming to Jesus moment where it was kind of like, listen, you're an employee of mine. I thank you for all the work you've done for me. We can discuss a raise or discuss whatever, but this guy basically was in his head, this 40,000 was basically thinking, okay, percentage wise, you wouldn't be remotely close to where you are without my recipes and without some of my ideas. And so I should be, in other words, if you're making $50 million a year, I should be making at least $2 million a year
Yeah.
to be a brewmaster.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work that way. And,
Right.
it'd be nice to know that if a company's making 22 or $222 billion a year, that they would save it for a rainy day, maybe kick it back and help some employees. I know when Dick Broadcasting, the company that hired me and brought me down to Birmingham, when they sold out, they had 13 radio stations in Knoxville. When they sold out, they gave everybody in their radio station family certain amount of money per year of service. And I got a $20,000 check after I've been here for like 10 years. I got there when it started. I got a $20,000 check because they sold the business and they did really, really well. They didn't have to do that, but I thought, wow, that's really nice. They really took, and unfortunately, those days are long gone. You don't see that happening very much where you see businesses say, man, we had a really good year this year. We gave you a little bonus. And sometimes it's thousands of dollars. I mean, I don't know where those businesses, exist anymore if they do it all. But I've always been like, just because I'm working for a company, they've given me the opportunity to be an employee. I've had some great ideas. I'm not licensed. I don't own those ideas. I'm paid to come up with those ideas. That's my idea. It was my idea to put the menu or my idea to come up with the brew. And you're taking it to the next level. But you're the one that's invested the money. You're the one that bought the building. You're the one that hit the streets for 3 years to get the $1 million. And people don't see that part. They don't see that part.
Yeah, I get it.
It's kind of like, if I've got $1 million.
And I love entrepreneurialism.
Oh, yeah.
Where people take all the risk, and I do believe there should be a lot more reward, because you see these battles all the time. Like, you go out and sell a product, and the guy's like, "But I'm making the product every day. Without me, you couldn't do it." And he goes, "No, I can hire somebody to bring in a product, or to physically make the product, or I can get a machine to do it." But there, in today's world, there's so much of taking an idea and getting it to market. And there is the marketing, and then there's the order process, and just breaking through. I mean, there's just so much to it that it's very difficult to have an idea. You can just see some of that on Shark Tank, when people who create things, and they go on Shark Tank, and some of them, the ideas explode, but they talk about, hey, you're going to need $1 million to get your first bit of orders, to pay for that, just to be able to meet the demand. I mean, there's just so much to it that the average guy who's like, oh yeah, you're paying me $25,000 a year to make this, and you're making all this money. It's like, yeah, I took on all the risk. I'm taking all the, I used my savings. I put all that at risk. All you're doing is showing up to work, and I'm paying you for what you agreed to work for.
Yeah.
But when you get into something as large as healthcare, and you've got, and the truth is, you do have some bad actors. Everybody who lobbies is certainly not a bad actor, but you have United Healthcare spends millions upon millions in Congress with lobbyists. So do the insurance, so do other insurance companies, but so do the medical companies, so do the people who are advocating for the little guy, just on and on and on. And our lawmakers are so influenced, and that's why people see when they talk about it's so corrupted with money. That's why you can, and I'm saying the Clintons. I'm not pulling them out. Bill Clinton, when he was governor, made $30,000 a year.
Yep.
And Hillary worked at a law firm, and Barack Obama's the same way. They're all the same way, Republican or Democrat. But they went in with nothing. He was a community organizer, Barack Obama becomes a senator, but didn't come from money. And now he's how do you go into the office of the president? You make $400,000 a month, you serve for 8 years, and you come out and you are a multimillionaire.
Mm-hmm.
and maybe worth $60 million. And you're like, how's that possible? Those numbers don't add up, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
It,
Talk real
it's a
quick because
big problem.
we're up against it. And sometimes, we don't always have the answers here. We just like to discuss it. And we certainly invite people to send in emails, info@tonycurryradio.net, info@tonycurryradio.net. Please send your ideas and your thoughts on any previous shows. Our shows are available everywhere. And we're up for several awards for this particular show through the Alabama Broadcasters Association, which we're really tickled and peach about that. The idea of a CEO, though, and I know this particular CEO traveled by himself. I realize that CEOs for other insurance companies and maybe for other, I know that whenever you have a major company, you usually have the VP and the president take separate planes. I get that. Will this change anything for the look of CEOs in this country? Unless we have a copycat or we have another issue. You're a CEO. What are you hearing?
Well, the only thing I've heard is that, your high-powered CEOs might change, get some added security. So somebody's looking at their back and, one in the front, one in the back. But the reality is you have things like this, and I just heard of another school shooting today, unfortunately, in Wisconsin, a Christian school in Wisconsin. Don't know any of the details, but it's the same way. When something happens, all the news floods to that incident, and it gets all this talk, and then the next tragedy happens, and everybody's focuses on that, and that's probably what happens here.
Yeah.
But as we go further and further into this, and healthcare gets more and more expensive, it takes up so much of our gross domestic product with Medicare and Medicaid, and and it used to be, and maybe it is such a, people love to throw out the word socialist system. I'm not saying that that's the right answer. I don't know what the right answer is. I just know that what we're doing right now with almost this triangle of entities going in and fighting for this pot of money and fighting for control and fighting to have it done their way, who ends up really getting hurt most of the time is the little guy. Yep. Who goes to work with faithfulness and just says, hey, if I'm sick, I'm covered. I have insurance. And then they go to the doctor and they have some rare form of cancer or a rare condition or something else. And now he's bankrupt because they've sucked every dime out of his life.
You very rarely hear of anyone sending an insurance company a Christmas card. And there's something wrong with that, because when you do pay for long periods of time and things do work out, I've never heard someone that went through a major car wreck or a cancer treatment or something and said, thank goodness I've got the insurance I have.
Yeah.
And I'm Blue Cross Blue Shield. I know they're an Alabama-based company. They may be different, but for the most part, people will say, yeah, I've got great insurance, but they normally don't use it. You know what I mean? It's great to have insurance if you don't need it. So, hey, great stuff, my friend. CEO. He is the CEO. He's one of the good guys, folks. Look after him.
There's already a lot of people. I already got a target on my back to a lot of other people. So,
Heart of Valor Food Bank.
This is the area I live in anyway.
Yeah. We've got him on every single week right here on Tony Curry Radio. He's a good guy. And Bite by Bite's up next right here on TKR, wherever you get your favorite podcast.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.